trying to work on the last one. Yeah. We'll probably see it tomorrow.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Then we're gonna split it up.
Roll call for planning and zoning committee members, Mike Johnson. Jonathan Wright. Jude Lucas Brimley.
Here.
Jared Weber. Here. Cheryl Goldberg is absent. I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 19th meeting. Motion to approve the minutes from January 19th. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
New business, we have a rezoning application by Northeast Missouri Health Council for the property located at 118 East Grand in Memphis, Missouri, to potentially rezone from residential to a commercial property. We just have a few housekeeping things to go over first. We 100% respect the fact that there are people that are in agreement with this. We respect the fact that there are people that are not in agreement with this. We want to make sure that our meeting is efficient and effective. So we do have time standards for our meeting tonight. We will allow the Health Council 15 minutes to present on their application and the reason for their application, and then all other attendees here will have a 5-minute time limit to speak their piece, say what they want to say, okay? On that, the committee can use our discretion. If you're at your 5-minute time limit and say you need to wrap up a point, we can extend that if needed, okay? We ask everybody to please remember that this is a business meeting that will be handled as such. Does anybody have any questions before we begin? No? All right. Do you guys would like to begin?
Good evening, thank you, Sarah, so much for the formality of this, I stood or stand, so, I will stand for a bit, but, my name is David Brown, I'm attorney in Kirksville. I've had the privilege of serving as general counsel for the Northeast Health Council for a number of years. Mr. Andy Grin is with me, who's the CEO of the Health Council, so thank you all for hearing us. Thank you for other public interest who are here to hear the application. I think the application is relatively straightforward. Sarah's outline is related to 118 East Grand Avenue, which many of you already know is the former Church of Christ. The address is located on the north side of US Highway 36, which is bordered by commercial, residential, and agricultural properties in and around that area. As indicated in the application, which I believe the Commission has, the Health Council is requesting a change in the property's current zoning to commercial to allow the Health Council to modify the existing structure to an outpatient primary care clinic. I have a rendering, which is just kind of a rough sketch here of perhaps what that clinic would look like should the Commission approve our request. If I could, I'd give everybody a copy of that so we can visual, if that's all right. Back side of this is the color map of the red square for the subject property.
That would be all of them down there.
Okay.
So that's our committee.
Yeah. All right, where do I start? No, that's okay. I want to give you all just a visualization. I've got a few extra of these if anybody would like to have one, that'd be fine. Sure. As you can see from the proposal, the clinic would consist of 5 exam rooms, a waiting room, and some space for some office staff. Other than a new front door and an updated facade, the overall structure and the footprint of the existing building will remain the same. In advance of the Health Council's consideration of this site, many of the things that this commission is going to be considering this evening were also considered by the health council, so I want to briefly just go through those things about the property's proposed use and implications on the surrounding properties. Proposed clinic would be open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Given the modest size and anticipated staff in the clinic, there would not be significant traffic in or out of the clinic. And given the existing parking area, there's more than sufficient parking to serve the needs of the health council, intended use, and therefore there will be no anticipated change to the existing parking area. As it relates to the property's location, it's certainly conveniently located in a good spot for patients to access, as the property is located from primary thoroughfare in and out of your city of Memphis here. Additionally, wouldn't have any noise issues as it relates to the use other than the periodic squeal of a young child getting treated in there, but there should be no implication of any noise other than what's already previously been there. It's the belief and observation that the Health Council's proposed use is consistent with the surrounding area and surrounding landowners, and also really consistent of its prior use of the Church of Christ as it relates to that, certainly not any heightened level of traffic as written or any other noise or traffic in or out or parking or hours of operation, that sort of thing. So that would just be normal business hours, nothing late in the evenings. There are many businesses and commercial sites along Highway 36, as you guys know, and frankly, the healthcare clinic seems most fitting to be located along Highway 36 for both the convenience of access and also convenience for the community members. Finally, given all these things, I don't believe the council's proposal would cause any property value to be negatively impacted upon the approval of the application. To the adjacent landowners are certainly not negatively going to impact the value of those property owners. As indicated in the proposed rendering, the footprint of the existing building will not materially be changed, and is in fact our hope that the community would consider this improvement to the property to in fact be an improvement to the property and ultimately to the community. We do believe that this again is the highest and best use for this property and the highest and best use for this location, again finding consistency with the other property uses in and around Highway 36. It is a request of the Health Council that the Commission approve the application and recommend to ultimately the Board of Aldermen that the zoning be changed of this parcel, and that change be made permanent and by in-written ordinance by the City Council. Folks, I think that's about all I had as it relates to that. I wanted to just briefly address the application again. It's fairly straightforward. I'll be more than glad to answer any questions specifically related to the site, related to the building, related to the ultimate plan. So with that, I'll keep it short.
I did need to also mention earlier, I forgot to, when you do stand up to speak, if you don't mind saying your name, just so everybody knows who is speaking, okay? And anybody would like to go first?
I guess I would ask a question related to the traffic. I mean, you indicated that, most churches are only open on Sunday, right? And this is going to be open, so doesn't that would that be a valid statement to say that it's not going to change the traffic flows?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry, what was your name?
Chris. I'm sorry, you just said that, Kate. Chris Feeney.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Mr. Feeney, thank you for the question, and maybe Andy's better to answer this question than I, but we have talked about that, and also, sincerely, all these considerations were made by the council in advance of making the application, and you really advanced of our interest in the property, but it was our belief that perhaps the church crowd on Sunday was going to generate far more cars by numbers versus the patients on a 5-day week, Monday through Friday 8 to 5. So you probably are correct in that you're gonna see, you would see more traffic on a daily basis than you would just that surge on Sunday. So fine question, and you probably are correct.
And I'm not a neighboring property, so I mean, you would have to bring that to their attention, but I just, thank you.
Kevin Brown. So I guess my first question would be, where are we pulling resources from as far as personnel to staff the clinic? What are your plans, your future plans for bringing other providers in? Are there plans to bring other services into the community as well? I'm sorry, I'm just going to list off.
Sure.
How does having the clinic here increase access for patient care? But it's all you answer those, and I have more questions.
Mr. Brown, thanks, and I'm glad to entertain whatever Chairperson Harris would ask us, but probably getting a little far afield really of the inquiry of what this hearing is about as it relates to the impact to the community as it relates to that particular building. So just to answer your question specifically, I don't know. I think that would have to be in long-term planning, and we'd have to consider those things as the patient care developed here. And so, but as it stands now, I think it's clear that Dr. Wilson would fill that void, as I understand his departure from the hospital. So that would be the immediate fill of that spot. So I'm not sure if I answered all your questions, Mr. Brown. Yeah.
Well, it's okay, I'm sure it's comfortable with me sitting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm Andy Graham, I'm with the Health Council, obviously, so you make some really good questions about resources, because that's what we're all dealing with in Northeast Missouri, right? I mean, it's an issue, it's a shortage of nursing, it's a shortage of physicians, it's a shortage of everything, not just in Scotland County, but every other county we work in. So, I think it's a fair question, and what I would tell you is, I don't have all those answers, I don't. We haven't gotten quite candidly far enough along to start thinking about hiring staff to go to a remodel that would have to take place. There's going to be some time. We have staff, obviously, that we can rotate around and that we can fill boys with come out of Kirksville. That's not unusual for us. But one of the things that, I did get a chance to have a conversation with Ms. Weber yesterday about some of the resources I think that us being in the community can bring. It's not just a taken away, it's also some of the things we can bring. We just recently received some notice from Senator Blunt's office that on his way out, you guys may have been fortunate enough to get some support from him as well, but we were funded for an apprenticeship program to try to develop a registered certified medical assistant program and a certified dental assistant program. We'd already talked about, before this opportunity came along, we already planned to do that with Scotland County Schools. I think it's an opportunity that we do it with Scotland County Schools. And one of the things about that apprenticeship program is we're trying to pursue that state certified apprenticeship program is we can't just train those folks and bring them in and make them certified medical assistants and keep them. They're eligible to go anywhere. So it's very possible that what we would do is partner with, I would like to partner with the hospital, quite frankly, and identify kids in surrounding schools, put them through this apprenticeship program. They can do some outpatient with us, they can do some stuff with them, and whoever hires them, hires them. There's a state program to train and support those things. So I honestly, and I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt when I say this, I honestly believe that the strength of having an FQHC in your community is that it brings more resources. And it's proven out to be that way in a lot of places. We just wrote a pretty substantial grant for a rural health network development grant with the Sullivan County Hospital, and we're on their team, they're the lead. They're trying to develop and do pursue some federal and state funds to do some things there, and we're just a team member. But it was our grant staff that helped them write it because they didn't have the grant capabilities to write it. So, I've given the leadership here my assurance that we're going to be a partner and not take away, and that's really I hope that's enough of an answer for what you're looking for. But everything else is kind of in development,
Would you care if I ask a follow-up question?
No, I don't.
So, You mentioned that having the FQHC here would be a boon for the community. My understanding is, and this was before my time here in Memphis, but my understanding was that we had an FQHC here.
We had plenty here.
What was the reason for leaving the first time, number one? And I guess the second question would be, if it's decided that it wouldn't be proper to zone this the way that you requested, is there an alternative site that you have in mind already as to?
Options, there's several options. We look at things that are for sale out there, but I don't have a certain plan to go in a different direction. But to your question about our previous clinic, we did have a clinic when I first came to work for the health council. It was actually at the hospital, and Dr. Davis was our employee. And I felt, at least I inherited, and I came into that learned the business with that clinic, but I felt like it worked well. It worked well for the hospital, it worked well for us. Dr. Davis made the decision to leave our employee and go to the hospital, and that's certainly his to do. But and about, I think 30 days later, or that day, we got a 30-day notice that they were eliminating the lease. We had a 30-day lease on it at the hospital, and so rather short notice, we were evicted, and here we sat with no dock and no building, so it's kind of hard to run a clinic with neither. But your question brings around really, I think, the critical point here, which is what makes those things work is the local physicians that want to stay here and work. That's the critical piece that every rural community is trying to put together. How do you get local docs who are willing to come back here and give it's not easy working out here. So how do you get them to come back and stay and not be a revolving turnover of recruiting people to come and leave? And that was what Dr. Davis was. I couldn't even replace that. I could have tried to recruit 2 or 3 people when he went next door, but I couldn't have kept them. And it would have been a revolving door that probably didn't advance the medical community that much. Well, in this case, it's kind of the opposite. What we're trying to keep is him from going out of town. That's how I got involved. And it's not appropriate for me to bring up any of the other things that led up to the fact that Dr. Wilson was looking for a different option to stay in the community, but that's why we're here, because that's the critical resource that we both agree we got to keep in the community.
Appreciate your.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, thanks, Steve. Name, whoever. It would be silly to say that it wouldn't be beneficial to keep a local doctor here. And I think, obviously, I have concerns. We have long listings for nurses. We're always hiring. There's a concern there, but I think it's up to us to have a trusting relationship and communication that you're not going to bring more providers in here and flood the market. We had that conversation yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this. Our start wasn't superb, but I have a trusting relationship with Dr. Wilson, and we've communicated, and he wants to refer things to the hospital, but there's always the workforce concern is huge everywhere. So.
Yeah, and that truly is everywhere. It's in Kirksville, it's in every community.
I mean, we're trying to open the nursing home. There's why did nursing home close? We didn't have nurses.
I guess my broader question, the gist of what I was asking, what do you see being the impact on the hospital? I mean, the hospital is part of the community. They're inextricably intertwined, those two, the face of those two. So, I believe they are. And, there's what do you see being the impact of opening this clinic on the hospital? I mean, do you see this being a benefit, or do you see this being detrimental overall?
I certainly don't see it being a detriment. I think there's a lot of potential for it to be a benefit. Dr. Wilson and I have talked about that some. Megan and I have talked about that some. His nature of his practice is going to do quite a few procedures that he could either do outpatient or inpatient. We both agree it's probably best to just do them inpatient. They're used to it, they need them. There's a lot of that in other places where we work. It's really about outpatient care. In general terms, outpatient care is what feeds your extra stuff at the hospital. That's what feeds your procedure. He can continue to do that. If you guys have recruited somebody else, you're going to have the internal resources. We've got more resources. That means collectively we've got more resources and outpatient services you've ever had. Let's try to generate more work for everybody, including the it could not be more sincere when I say this. You guys are right to fight for your hospital. Absolutely right. Because when the places where it goes south, it goes really south. We work, we're 11 counties, so I've been through the Putnam County fiasco a time or two. Well, there's nobody in Putnam County. Sullivan County, same issue, struggling. We've had a very good relationship with Sullivan County. We've had a good relationship with Samaritan and Macon. So I trust me when I tell you, I'm not mad at all, I'm not frustrated at all, and I'm not at all surprised that you're fighting like heck to keep and support your hospital. You got to. I just happen to believe that we can be part of it and be helpful. And I understand that that's ours to prove, but I'm pretty confident in it. So that's what I would tell you. I'll give you my word on that, but that's the intent.
Thank you.
I don't know if we're allowed a 5-minute window or if I burned up mine.
No.
I guess I have a question. The only reason I stuck around is I was just in a meeting about housing. We were told that we're short hundreds of units of housing in here. So my concern is to see commercial property, our residential property going into commercial property, So I guess my thought process is why that, is it just the location or is there not available commercial? Can we not get you guys into commercial property? I'm just concerned about us rezoning anything away from residential because we're trying to build this housing program.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, and would like to be part of that at some point if we can be helpful. Honestly, the property was, as my dad would say, it's almost impossible to buy something that's not for sale.
Right.
And it was for sale, and it suited our needs, and Highway 136 is good access, it's good traffic. I like you, I was thinking a little bit about traffic. I pulled out to the end at the drive and wanted to see how far I could see that way and how far I could see that way. Because some of our patients that move like it should, and I worry about that. But anything on 136 is always good for traffic, and it was for sale. Right. And it was the right size.
I just didn't know if I'm not a real estate person, so I don't pay attention to what's for sale or not, so I just didn't know if there's other commercial property, there's a shortage of commercial property, or if it's, why we need to zone something residential.
Yeah, you'd have to ask the folks that have a lot more experience in real estate, but to me that just seems like a complete outlier that I'm not sure why that's residential again. It just probably historically that church has been for a long time, because it's commercial all over that corridor. So, frankly, I was surprised that it was residential when we got that part out. Just by the way, but it's a good question, and housing is an issue, no doubt about it. I tell people that when they say, "What do you do?" We're the Federal Qualified Health Center. Well, there's a whole list of what an FQHC is, and we're entrusted to provide, medical and behavioral and dental and enabling services and everything from interpretation to transportation. All those things are part of our purview for our dollars that we get from the feds. But if you really get down and get technical to it, the Northeast Missouri Health Council has an FQHC, but the Northeast Missouri Health Council is nothing more than a 501c3 organization that was founded in Missouri by a community group of people in 1968, 1969, a long time ago. And we have given a lot of thought about trying to do what we do well, which is the medical and dental and that stuff. But there's a lot of folks at FQHCs that are getting into housing, that are getting into some training type apprenticeship training programs. Teaching health centers is a thing where you can get some additional grant dollars and try to do some partner more with academics and education. So I honestly tell you that I do think that presents an opportunity more than it presents a challenge for partnership, because I see things that come down the road that you may not see, and I can say, hey, Maggie, try this. One of the examples I shared with her yesterday was we got about $100,000 or so of grant dollars that were dedicated to us simply to address the low numbers for people getting age-appropriate screening colonoscopies. And so what we did is we bought $100,000 worth of screening colonoscopies from rural hospitals where our clinics are, so our providers would say to the patient, hey, you're due for a colonoscopy. And the guy said, yeah, but I don't have $4,000 extra bucks. We say, hey, we'll buy it, it's paid for, we arranged it with the hospital. We didn't spend it all, it's hard to get it. If I could find a way in the next 3 months to spend $58,000 at this hospital to do screening colonoscopies and enough patients to qualify to do it, that's all they'd be doing for the next 3 months. I mean, those are those kind of opportunities. So I just try to look at the opportunities. I'm not at all upset about the idea that you guys, hey, prove yourself. Can you help? Are you going to hurt? We want to save our hospital. Absolutely get it. I don't know if that answered your housing question.
I just,
Get around.
I mean, we're at the zoning meeting, you know, that to me is, and like I said, just came out of that meeting, and it kind of shocked me to hear those numbers, so it's like, you know, just something for consideration is, you know, I think everybody makes progress and we can make advancements, and it's just, you know, there's repercussions for doing things, and just some thought to that as far as how that works. Thank you. And I just turned 50 not too long ago, so if there's any of that colonoscopy money, I think that's the magic right?
It's there. Find a way to arrange it to the easy part, you gotta go do it.
There you go. I don't, yeah.
Go for the stove card, stay away from that stove,
I got a question just on the past zoning meeting we had an application turned in over a property that was discussed that you all were going to purchase, and it was turned in as stated to be a mental health or behavioral health benefits. Would that have been for this operation or?
Now,
I mean,
that location we talked about had more potential for sure in terms of expansion. I can tell you our goal is to have all three. It always is in every location. We don't always. Cahoga is just limiting enough that we have just dental. We do just medical and behavioral out of Edina, and we try to supplement some of those locations with local dental. That spot up there, I thought was large enough that it would be a one-time get in there and that was the spot. I'll be blunt with this. I don't think you can do everything we want to do on the size of this building. What it has in store for it is, or what it has as advantages. The exterior structure is good. If we can go in this time of year and be fairly efficient, fairly quick about getting the clinic going. But in terms of longer term planning, it's another location probably at some point. And again, that's fundraising, that's partnering, that's working with the stakeholders and figuring out, do we call, Mark Twain or call Preferred and say, hey, we're looking at putting something together in Memphis that's a bigger, more comprehensive piece. You want to partner, you want to try to pursue some grant dollars. We want to work with the hospital and put a team together. But I could do that on that spot up there, but I don't think I can do it on this spot. I just don't think it's big enough.
With the nursing home structure, is that something you look into for expansion of that?
Potentially, I did look at part of the nursing home. I think it was the nursing home. I'm confused with the two buildings. I think the nursing home, yeah. So we did look at some of that. That would be a temporary spot, kind of just get the clinic going. But it just lays out difficult for a quick remodel. For one, it just the rooms. I couldn't find. I felt like it just was going to be round pegs for a whole type thing. But long term, I want to kind of have a more community, involved plan and talk about building it more of a health center that has medical and dental and behavioral and maybe some drug treatment stuff for and all that. Everything's on the table. Renovating some of those type of buildings gets you some extra credit in terms of the funders sometimes. So, I don't have this. That's the other thing I want to say. I don't have a solution for your community. I have a lot of good ideas and I have a lot of resources to help, but we just want to be part of you trying to figure out the solution. That's how I do it. So absolutely, we'll talk about what those are.
What is your estimated date that you would open?
Like to get open about late March. It's going to be a tough one.
I saw that there's billboards and advertisements up and all that already, so
Well, they're a little ahead of schedule, but yeah. I tried to put the reins on some of that. But yeah, it's going to happen. The issue that we have going in our favor, we're right in the middle of an expansion in Edina. And knock on wood, you know, we got blessed, I don't know how many times you guys around here have had poured concrete and foundation walls and basement floors in January, but we pulled it off this year luckily, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule on that one, which gives me the opportunity that if this thing goes forward and goes forward pretty quickly, we can get the Sparks crew up here. They've already kind of been up and looked at it. I mean, I think it's doable to do late March. If there's no delay, you know, necessary delays on it. My understanding is the city council doesn't meet until February, right? Or early February, so. But, hey, it's an aggressive schedule.
Brett Walker, how many people would this facility employ, and what levels of training would they have?
Yeah, we would anticipate in that, obviously, Dr. Wilson, we would anticipate 2 nurses for him, and probably maybe a medical assistant and a front desk receptionist. So, you know, you high school diploma stuff, front desk, medical assistants are typically not licensed, will be certified at some point of the program, and then a couple of nurses. We use both RNs and LPNs.
Knowing how short the housing is here in Stoughton County, if your zoning request is approved tonight, based on your anticipation of expanding, will you be coming back to city council asking that other residential properties be turned commercial, like the Betty Street properties that are literally people's backyards?
No, absolutely not. No, I wouldn't. No, I can tell you that, you know, I can tell you that if we go something bigger, like I said, the next stage of it wouldn't just be us trying to get in and get this thing going and squeeze it into an existing building. The next stage would be get together as a community and figure out what we want to do. So I don't have, you know, that spot became on the radar simply because of the proximity of the hospital. Quite frankly, I thought it was going to be. I assumed that the community would prefer to keep all of the medical up close to the hospital. That's why I looked at the spot at the beginning.
Have you physically seen the spot and seen that it is literally inches from structures that are part of
Yeah,
residential?
I did. Yeah, after we talked about it, I went up and took a look at it. I understand the you know, the resistance on it, certainly. So, no, I don't have any intention of going back that way. Again, I was looking at places that were for sale. It kind of limits your choices. So, it wasn't any calculation trying to just, you know, I'm certainly not looking for conflict just for the fun of it. So.
Susie Lister. We have a hospital. We're a community of less than 2,000 people. We have a health department. We have a rural health clinic with multiple providers that also have specialties that come in. Exactly what service do you feel that you need to bring as a medical facility? And I understand this is zoning, but we know that zoning is for a medical facility. What part of that, or what are you trying to bring in that our community does not have already or cannot have with the facilities that we have, hoping our hospital does not close?
Yeah, well, so the first thing is, I'm trying to keep that one down. Additional service, and that's a big service. The additional services are, some of the things that we offer are, you know, they're not really medically related as much as they are enabling services. We have community health workers that work at all of our clinics that help providers and patients link up to other resources in the community because providers don't have time to do that on a daily basis.
Such as what do you like?
So if you know, both of these guys can tell you that you can't count probably the number of times they've been with a patient that is non-compliant or struggling to stay up on their medication. Well, part of those things are those environmental factors. You know, it's the home life. They may not have a refrigerator that's working. They may need resources at home with power or electrical. We actually have community health workers that these guys would refer to and say, hey, I'm going to get you lined out on your medications, but I'm going to refer you to the community health worker who essentially serves as a social worker. But communicates back to the treatment team. So that's a valuable thing. It's not replacing anything, but it's more services that we get funded for. Those are state paid positions to work with our staff and on our patients. So There's those, there's enabling services like transportation. If someone's struggling to get to an appointment, our community health workers will go out and pick them up. They'll bring them to the clinic. And sometimes you can't rely on the paid for, the Medicaid supposedly pays for medical transportation, but they're unreliable at best. So those are just some of the things. It's not really so much about replacing the medical piece as it is keeping the medical piece that you have and adding some of the enabling services that we have that are provided as an FQ. We get some of those resources that not every entity gets. So that's the way I look at it.
So we've struggled, with our medical, but we also have had added an aging dentist. Why is dentistry not something that would have been a service that we didn't have, that we'd sure like to have here?
Well, I'd like to have one here too. I'd like to have one for the empty spot at Kirksville. That's a hard recruit. Doesn't mean we can't do it, we shouldn't do it, we won't look for it, but it's a hard recruit.
Basically, she answered or asked what I was.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Is there anybody that lives within 185 feet of the premises that's here tonight?
I believe so. Did we receive any written notice of disagreement from the property owners? No.
Sarah's up on my list, so I can start working on that. It's in there, so.
I do have one thing, I'm gonna keep it pretty vague, but, Mr. Wilson's obviously awarded, he can do whatever he wants to with his career, but, it'd be nice if they're gonna bring something in, if you could bring new employees in instead of taking employees from the
Totally understand.
establishment we already had.
Totally understand, and I'll tell you that I'll give the same commitment to this hospital and nursing home, or nursing, anybody you have here, the same commitment I have with every other community we're in. I will not recruit your employees. Now, if they put an ad in the paper, we put an ad in the paper and they respond to it, I can't do much about it. But I will not target your employees. My HR department will never call your employees and say, hey, are you looking for something to jump to? I don't do it in any community I work in, and I don't like it when people do it to me. But that's a commitment you'll get, I will guarantee will never happen. And that's really all I mean, that's the best I can do at this point.
Madam Chairman. Dr. Wilson, I apologize, to Andy for one, for having to field these kind of questions. This is a zoning committee meeting, and should be held to nothing less. My grandparents grew up in this town. My parents grew up in this town. I grew up in this town. I intend for my kids to grow up in this town. And if I can't do what I was meant to do and what I want to do and work with this community in a capacity where I'm at, I feel obligated to leave that employment. Mr. Grimm and his associates had zero part in talking to me or recruiting me. In fact, I went to them with the sole purpose of saying, I want to stay here. Can you help me? There is no ill intent towards this community. There is no ill intent towards your hospital or my hospital. The last thing I want to see is this hospital closed. It's my community. So I apologize to you guys for having to field questions from people who clearly don't understand my position. And my position is I intend to stay here as long as I'm allowed to do what I want to do, which is take care of this community and expand on taking care of this community. Madam Chair.
Here's my response to that.
So do I.
Michael Duzan, aka Dr. Duzan. I've been at it years ago. Briefly, I worked for the Health Council 20 plus years ago. When there were 3 different entities employing doctors in this community. Dr. Keller was in private practice. Dr. Schneider started with the Health Council, became a hospital employee. I was a Health Council employee. And it worked because everyone got involved. And it worked because the entities were focused on providing services for the community. It wasn't about pulling things away or setting anything out. You know, I came back here a couple of years ago because this is my home. My kids grew up here, like Shane said. All four of my daughters graduated school here. I delivered my two youngest daughters out here in this hospital. And my youngest is now 24 years old. You know, my situation is kind of similar to Shane's. I approached the hospital because I want to be vested in healthcare system. I've known Shane, oh my gosh, since I became here in '94, probably. You know, back long before he was Dr. Wilson, and we worked together well in Kirksville when I was ER down there. And I look forward to working with him here. He and I actually visited this week, and you know, a lot of what's on people's hearts and minds here tonight is what I'm going to call a political kind of slant. At the end of the day, Shane and I do the same thing. We try to take care of patients. He and I understand the need to work together. I will still work with him in the future because we do the same thing here. And there'll be times when I need his expertise. And hopefully he will need to bounce something off me, or he needs to be gone and wants me to cover patients or something like that. You got to work together. This is rural America. You know, yeah, our nursing home is gone at the moment. You know, I want to challenge everybody to step outside themselves for just a moment and realize that right now across this country, rural hospitals are closing right and left at a faster rate than ever before. This hospital is working very, very hard to not let that happen, and they've had a lot of success. The new administration has been able to bring multiple providers on board, which has been a huge, huge addition to the community. I don't want to see physicians leave either. One, that's probably more work than I signed on for, if they start leaving. But we certainly want good physicians. And so, whatever key you came here from their heart, remember this is. I understand it was a zoning meeting, and we've got way away. But this is about trying to cohesively work together in a way that benefits the people in this community. You know, this is my kids' home. Two of my kids live here and work out at this school, and they're going to be here for the foreseeable future. You know, I still have good friends in this community, and I'm excited to be back you know, working and caring for patients. And when we talk community, remember we're not talking this little town. We talk about other counties. The hospitals in at least 3, 4, Clark, 4. You know, everybody's trying to take care of the needs of the community. And I just want to encourage people, just keep your focus on we're a service profession. We take care of patients. We take care of living, breathing people who have needs. Whether it's they don't have enough money for their medicines or their housing issues, or we can't get them a test done. I've worked in all sorts of environments, including federal managed care in Colorado. And I thought it was a dream for about 3 months or whatever, and COVID showed up, and it was the worst nightmare of life. But we're rural America. We still have a chance to put the best interest of our community and our people first, and that's what we need to stay focused on. And that requires communication and commitment. In the end, you're coming. It's just a matter of what building you're getting. I don't think that we need to come up on that stuff. You get a doctor staying in the community. That's going to be good for the patient. It's going to be good for me because it's another physician that I can lean on. You know, personally, I know it's the best location. I would want it if I was putting a clinic in that location. I understand it's for sale. I don't want my 80-year-old patients pulling out on 136 trying to make a left-hand or right-hand turn when somebody's coming down that hill in an 18-wheeler. Especially on a day like today. It is what it is with that. So just please start keeping that in focus. Why are we here? I understand it's supposed to be a zoning meeting and we've all kind of wandered from there. I came back here because this is my kids' home, which makes them loud. I came back because, and went in employment for the hospital because I'm almost 58 years old. I really didn't want to open my own practice. I don't take that on this one. But I believe in what people are trying to do with veterans. I think that's very simple. That kind of thing. You know, and I wanna say openly, I respect you, Shane, for standing up tonight and making it clear that they did not come seeking after you, that you went to him, of course, I already knew that. But I appreciate you. That's my colleague. And he had a conversation yesterday, very clearly said, doesn't matter who's writing our paycheck, who's signing our paycheck, we're here to do the same thing, let's take care of patients the best we can. I think you really do want to come into your and take care of patients the best you can. The hospital wants to take care of patients the best. As long as everybody's adding to this.
Totally.
You know, that's what it comes down to. And we can't walk into fear and hesitancy. We just have to move forward the best we can.
Dr. Christine, I'm gonna give you a 1 minute warning.
That's absolutely
Sir.
fine.
I'm not.
No, you're not. Because I thought long and hard before I came back. You know, is this where I wanted to stay? And you said, Dr. Clear, our offers out there are ridiculous. You know, I can go to work 5 years and retire for the next 500. But let's just draw that focus back. We came here to see about whether or not how we're going to zone it and whether or not it's the best use of that space. And I think that decision needs to be made on what we know about today, not about the past or what might be in the future, because it's either over or over. We just have to make this decision. Appreciate it.
Anybody else, any other questions, comments?
Yeah, Trevor Harris, and I think I'll try to get this on more of the zoning and planning. So one thing that I would encourage you guys to consider, Alderman Campbell was involved in a pretty hairy situation in that general vicinity a few years ago, hauling grain in the elevator. I mean, that is Grand Central Station. That is how everybody from north and everybody from west get their grain to our local elevator. He had somebody pull out of the drive just down the road, and he had to take an evasive maneuver to load the truck down through a ditch to avoid a pretty severe accident. And when the leaves are on the trees, you know, getting in the fall and things like that, still when harvest is kind of gearing up. That's a hidden drive. When you are trying to make a right-hand turn out of there or a left-hand turn out of there, you know, you can't hardly see somebody when you're headed east coming up that hill. You know, that could be a very dangerous situation for somebody like you mentioned. You know, maybe they've got some neck or some muscle issues and they aren't quite as mobile as they should be. Because like I said, he was in a very bad nearly in a very bad accident hauling grain to the elevator. And like I said, that can be a little bit of a hidden drive. So the building just to the west of there, you know, somebody turns in thinking that's where they're heading. They make that circle drive to come right back out on 136. And they're not paying attention. That can be, especially in the harvest time around here, in a farming community, that can be a very dangerous intersection right there.
Yeah, no, noted, yeah, I'm glad to have that, you know, that local knowledge on it. I think, from what I noticed, just looked at it a couple times, the stuff on the on the west side, you know, most of that ditch that's full of trees through there is on this particular property. And, you know, first thing I thought was, let's get that cut back a little bit.
And that would be,
so you can see better, that'd be one of our first orders of business.
it was a very similar situation. He was headed east, coming up the hill, hauling grain. And like I said, somebody turned out of, it used to be, we call it the Raytech building, that was where Better Company was. And they, whether they were missed a drive, whatever, but this individual pulled out of there and he was headed up the hill east loaded and had to take an evasive maneuver through a ditch. And that was just an animal truck. You know, you got somebody coming through there in an 18-wheeler loaded down. They're not gonna take that evasive maneuver. You're gonna have a really bad accident right there.
Yeah, I think that opening up the timber on that side, if I may respond, I should ask. Opening up the timber on that side would help. The other thing is, you know, we'll put a little bigger signs. The church sign is pretty small.
Oh, yeah.
So a little bigger signage maybe kind of catches some traffic's eye a little bit, that they know that there's an entrance there. Keep the ditches, you know, weeds cut down so there's none of that stuff coming up. So points well taken. We want to do what we can to maximize the safety there for sure.
Anybody else? Other questions? Do you guys have any questions? Okay. All right, so the plan for the zoning and planning commission is that we are planning on meeting and deliberating later on, and closer to this, so we can have some candid conversations about things that we've heard, questions that are happening. are not going to give our recommendation to the board tonight on a vote for that. What will happen is the February 2nd, I believe, city council meeting, it is going to be an agenda item, so there is one last chance for public comments on that. But the committee will give our recommendation to the board at that time, and then the board will ultimately vote on the decision to approve that or to not approve it. Okay?
They'll vote on the 2nd? Okay. When you guys have your next meeting, are you going to post that? Is that going to be a public meeting?
Yeah, but it'll be our regular open session monthly meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Planning and zoning?
So planning and zoning will be an agenda item during the regular board meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm new.
That's all right, and that'll be posted on the city website, so that's all on there. Any other questions, comments, anything?
So the city council meeting after this is not going to happen,
It is, we have a couple of things to discuss.
but not this?
No, we're gonna meet very close session during that, just for us to deliberate and discuss, and just so we can have candid conversations with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, appreciate it, thank you for coming. Do I have a computer? Derek, all eyes.
We have ideas and things that we can talk about. You already have my cell phone. Yeah. I got you.
It's not candid. It's well, everybody sees.
Cell phone's on. Tony, can I get it? Okay. Yep. Well, I just, Tony, I don't know where it is. Yeah, well, thanks.